Let's make a lace stitch pattern. This is the Loom Knit Garter Inverted V Eyelets Lace. We have another V eyelet lace that goes like this, and this one's inverted and it's going the opposite direction with these fun triangles or pyramids worked in between with the garter stitch in here. So a really neat pattern. It is 14 rows. If you are a beginner that knows how to do some decreases, so maybe beginner plus, you could easily do this with all the instructions here in this video, and an intermediate will find it very easy. We will have the pattern for this 9x7 size, as well as a 12x12, and the just repeats for the stitch pattern so that you can make it whatever size you need. Let's begin on the Garter Inverted V Eyelets Lace. Welcome to GoodKnit Kisses. We're all about helping you stitch your love and love your stitches. To get the written pattern as well as information on the loom and yarn used, please click on the video description below and get the link to the pattern on our blog. The blog is free. It does have ads. If you'd like an ad-free version, you can get that on our Ravelry and Etsy stores, and those links are down below when you go to the blog. We also have a right and a left-handed tutorial for this, and so you can work your decreases from the right side on the right-hand video and the left side on the left-hand video. So feel free to get that, and that link is down below for both of those videos. All right, let's grab our supplies, get your pattern ready on the side, and we'll dig in. All right, let's get into the setup. Of course, you're going to have your loom and then your yarn that is appropriate gauge to that loom. I've got a couple of repeats here. This is actually a 9-inch wide piece that I'm working on, and I've casted on 38 stitches. It's a multiple of 18 plus 2, so 38 stitches will get me 2 repeats plus the 2. If you want to have more repeats in there, just add 18 stitches for each of those. So the next jump up would be 56, and that will get you to more like 12 inches wide to get 3 of these repeats. So I hope that makes sense. You can consult your pattern for more information. We're going to work this 14 row repeat, but first you want to cast on and work. I actually cast it on here, and I did a crochet cast on, or a chain cast on actually, from here to here, and then I worked 3 rows of knit. So I'm just going to work this way, knit once, and then knit again, and then knit back again, and then we get to this point. So it may not look like that I actually have these 3 rows in here knit, because then it starts jumping to a decrease, but I promise you actually need to have a couple of rows here in order to have stitches to start moving over and creating that first lace work. So go ahead, cast on, knit 3 rows, and join me back up on this side, and we will start moving. Our first set of stitches is technically row 4, but it's row 1 of our pattern repeat. As a reminder, I am right-handed, and I'm working this right-handed, and that's the name of the stitches, working from this direction. But if you're left-handed, technically the name of the decrease is slightly different, but you're going to work it exactly the same so that all the stitches are moving toward a point here to make this triangle, and then you'll have the purl stitches mixed with the knits to make a garter stitch for the middle of these triangles, and then you'll have a little garter stitch in the middle between each repeat. Okay, now I've got a couple of extra stitch markers kind of marking where these are, so if you want extra stitch markers, you can set them up the way that I have them in here, and I'll show you when we get to that row or that part, so that you can set it up this way if it helps you visually keep track of it. Okay, so you would need 2 stitch markers for every repeat that you're going to have. I have 2 in one color here, and I have 2 in another color here. If you add the third on, you'll want to, maybe repeat this other color over here. Okay, so I have my beginning stitch marker to mark the beginning of what we're calling our row 4. It's rows 4 through 17, which makes up a 14 row pattern repeat. All right, let's begin. Make sure and get your pattern handy so you have it to refer to. All right, we're going to knit the first stitch. Okay, and then we get to our repeated section. This is an asterisk that starts here. So it's going to be knit 2. So knit 1 and 2. And then we're going to yarn over SSK, slip, slip, knit. So in order to yarn over SSK, we're going to move over the stuff for the decrease. So we're going to pick up the second stitch, hold it, and move the first stitch over, and then replace that second stitch on top of the first stitch. And now we have an empty peg. So we're just going to yarn over by putting the yarn in front of our peg and then work these 2 stitches together. Okay, so this is SSK for right-handed. All right, now we're going to move on to the next stitch, which is knit 10. So you can see where I have my first stitch marker, and then let's count. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You can see there's my next stitch marker. So I'm just marking the outline of the bottom of this triangle in knit stitches. And then the next row, when we come back, those are going to be purled. Okay, so go ahead and knit 10. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then now we're going to have a knit 2 together, yarn over. So we're going to make a decrease here and simply going to move this first stitch on top of the second stitch. And we're going to knit those 2 together. So you're going to skip this empty peg, go behind it, knit these 2 stitches together, and then this stitch, this new one, well, oops, hang on. I split my yarn. We don't want to do that. All right, now I've got all of it. So we're going to take this stitch and move it to the empty peg. Okay, so we want our decrease first and then our yarn over. So the yarn over is on the outside of these decreases here. Okay, and then now we have knit 2. So I'm just going to simply have this yarn in front of the peg, knit 1 and knit 2. Okay, then we're going to repeat our asterisk section. So our asterisk had begun with knit 2. So we're going to knit 2, 1 and 2. And now we're going to yarn over SSK. So we're going to pick up the second stitch, move the first to the second, replace the second, and yarn over, and then knit these 2 stitches together. So this is an SSK, right-handed. And then they're the opposite word. So this would be a KT tog or knit 2 together from the left side. Okay, so now we're just going to repeat our knit section. You can see how it's easy to see because you've got those stitch markers here. So if you need to put your stitch markers in, do it. And if I'm going too fast, please click the controls for the playback speed and go slower. You can slow that right on down. Pause your video as you need. As always, I think it's a good idea to play the video first and watch the different things, and then you can come back and play it in slow motion to do it with me, speed it up where you need to, all that good stuff. So we're knitting 10. And now we want our decrease. And remember, the yarn over goes on the outside of these triangles here. So we're going to knit together. We're going to pick up the first stitch, move it to the second, and go ahead and knit that, skipping the first peg. And we're going to move it, when we're done knitting those 2 together, over to that empty peg. And then we place our yarn over, and then we knit 2. And then you'll knit the last stitch. So the end of the repeat is actually these knit 2, and then the last stitch is always knit 1. Okay, so that is the end of row 4. Now we're going to begin row 5. We're going to be knitting 1, purling 1, and the knit 1 is the beginning, and then you have your asterisk section, your repeated section that's purl. But just so you know, whenever you're working from this direction, the first and second stitch are always knit and then purl, okay? There we go. All right, so we've got beginning of asterisk was purl 1, then we want to knit 3, 1, 2, and 3. All right, and now we're going to purl all these stitches in between these pegs. So we're building our triangle here, or pyramid, whatever you want to call it, with garter stitch. So the row coming from this other direction is always knitting those stitches, and then on the return you're purling those same stitches, and then every other row they're decreased, so it gets smaller and smaller, the purl sections that you're doing. So I've done, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll probably speed this up here. Okay, and now we're going to knit 3. So we're going to knit 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and then now we're going to purl 1. So let's see, purl 1 here. And then we've got a repeated asterisk section. And so I just want to stop for a second and mark this. If you think it would be easier for you, if you're also a visual person and you like having extra stitch markers, you could take a rubber band and hold on, I'm going to get one. I'll show you what I mean. So I've got a quickie rubber band here. Let me pull this off. If you've got a rubber band, you can go around this peg and you can go around this next peg and mark, because those are going to be purl on these rows, and they're going to have that center middle area here. So you're going to be, it's in between the repeats, and you get this purl column here, and this will be really easy to visualize and do faster for you. I know speed does not have to be the thing, but a lot of times people want to see how they can speed it up a little bit. So this is just a little hairband that I use sometimes for marking several pegs at a time. You see how it just stretches over there, and you can just push it down to the bottom. All right. Okay, so now the beginning of this asterisk section starts here. So we've purled 1, and now we knit 3, and then we purl 10 all the way to this part here. And then we also, and then we end up doing that again, where we knit 3 and then purl 1 and knit 1. So go ahead and do that. If you get lost, check with your written pattern, and I will meet you at this last part here. We're gonna purl 1, knit 1. We'll pause your video and I will see you there. All right, so now we're going to purl 1, knit 1 to finish out row 5. So all of our odd rows are going to be going in that direction. And for time's sake on this video, all of our odd rows, I'm just going to tell you to consult the pattern. I might give you a little heads up of what's happening at the beginning of it, but be sure and look at that pattern. Again, the pattern will be down in the description below. It's just with the 14 row repeat, I don't think it's necessary to show you every single thing. So now we're going to work on row 6, and we're going to knit 4. So when you knit the first one, the beginning of the asterisk section is actually right here. So technically it's knit 1 and then you knit 3. So 1, 2, 3. And now we're going to do the same decrease that we did before. We just moved over a little bit, and we're going to be picking up the second stitch. We're doing the Yarnover SSK. So pick up the second, move it to the first, replace the second, and now we want to yarn over and then knit these 2 stitches together for an SSK. and left-handed would just call this a knit two together. But follow how I'm doing it here. Okay, so then we're going to knit 8. So it's 1 stitch in from where this stitch marker is and 1 stitch in here. So knit these 8 here. I'm just going to speed it up for time. Okay, and now we're ready for our next decrease. Knit 2 together, pick up your first stitch, put it on the second, knit those 2 stitches together, skipping that first one, and now we pick it up and move it back to that first stitch that was empty. Put your yarn over in, and now we're going to knit 3. 1, 2, 3. And visually you can see with our stitch marker that we put up in the middle here, you can see that I'm in the middle of that. That is the beginning of our repeat. So you can tell we're mirroring that. We're doing that again. So you can repeat those 3. And I'm not even looking at my pattern right now to confirm because I know that's exactly what happens. So we're going to knit 1, 2, and 3. And so now we need a decrease. Okay, so we're going to repeat the decrease that we did before. We're going to pick up the second stitch, hold it, pick up the first, put it on that second, replace, and now we have a yarn over and an SSK. Knit those 2 stitches together. Okay, and you got it. Now we're going to knit 8 stitches, so we're going in between these 2 stitch markers. Go ahead and knit those 8. I'll speed it up. Okay, and now we're ready for knit 2 together. Pick up the first, put it on the second, do the knit 2 together, and then you're going to move it over so that the yarn over is after the decrease. Right there. And now we're just going to knit to the end. Technically, the end of the repeat is 3. So if you have another repeat wide, you'll want to repeat after you do those 3. And then you can set up one of these little markers down here too if you need to. Just like you did down there, you can put it over here. Okay, so that is the end of row 6. Row 7, you're going to be working back, emphasizing what you did before. Of course, it always starts with a knit 1, purl 1. That purl 1 starts that repeat section, and so you're going to be knitting 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, this is the purl section in between these 2, and then you're going to be knitting the rest of the stitches 1, 2, 3, 4, and get to this middle section, and you guessed it, it's purl, and then you start repeating. So these 2 are purl. So I think you got it, and you go all the way back down to the end, and it always ends with a purl 1, knit 1. So pause your video. I'll meet you back for the end of this row. See you soon. Coming to the end of this row, and knit 1. So we had purl 1, knit 1. All right. So we are ready to begin row 8. We are going to knit our first stitch, and then our asterisk repeated section starts. We're going to knit 4. So knit 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to yarn over SSK. So we're going to pick up this stitch here, move the next over, and replace, yarn over right on that stitch marker, knit these 2 stitches together. Okay, and then now we're going to knit 6 stitches. So we knit 8 the row before, 10 the row before that. So now we're knitting 6 stitches in the middle of this section here. And then we'll decrease again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And now knit 2 together. pick up your stitch, move it over, knit those 2 stitches together, move it back 1 stitch, and yarn over. Okay, and now we're going to work, let's see, 4 stitches. So knit 1, 2, 3, whoops, 3 and 4. And here's our little reminder that we're on our repeat. And so we're just going to mirror those 4. Again, I don't even have to look at the pattern right now to know what the remaining is. So knit 4, whoops, 3 and 4. And now we know that we've got to do another decrease, and we're on the outside of this triangle here, so we want to move it this way. So we pick up, we skip a stitch, pick this next one up, move over. Whoops, I'm sorry, I picked up the wrong one. All right, skip this stitch, pick up the next one, move the first over, and replace. And now we have our yarn over falling right on that stitch marker. Work those 2 stitches over. And now we're going to knit our 6 and then do the knit 2 together over here and finish out our row knitting all the stitches. So you should have all the information you need to finish out this row. I'm going to speed it up. Six. Okay, knit 2 together. Be sure to skip that peg. Move it over. Put your yarn over on that stitch marker, and now we're going to knit to the end. Okay, be sure and look at your pattern to get the next row. Remember, we always begin our return row with a knit 1, purl 1, and then you're repeating those other stitches down below to get the garter stitch. So you begin by knitting 1, purling 1, okay, and then you're going to knit 5, because you want to knit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so that you can work the purl stitches in between here, the purling 6, because you had knit 6 before. I hope that makes sense. Don't forget to purl these 2 stitches here and then the ones in between here. Pause your video and I will meet you back up at the end for the purl 1, knit 1. We'll see you soon. All right, last 2 stitches on row 9, purl 1, and knit 1. Okay, sorry, that might have been too low for you. Okay, so we're going to start row 10 and we're going to knit 1, and that starts the beginning of our repeat, and then we're going to knit 5. So technically there's 6 knit stitches before your first yarn over decrease. Let's see, so this 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Remember that last row we had the yarn over right on top of that stitch marker, so now we're going to put it here. We're constantly moving them inward, picking up the second stitch, holding it, moving the first to the second, replacing, yarn over, and work these 2 stitches together. That's an SSK. And then now we're going to knit. So you can see that 1 stitch before is going to be our yarn over. So we're going to do, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And then now we have these 2 stitches left. We have to have our, let's see, yeah, that was our decrease, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have knit 2 together. So we're going to move this over here, and then knit these 2 stitches together, and now we move this back. So our decrease is here, and then that makes our yarn over 1 stitch before the stitch marker. And then now we have knit 5. So if you don't know what that number is without looking at your pattern, you just know that after you do your yarn over and decrease, or decrease and then yarn over, then you're going to knit to the middle of this marked set of 2, and then you knit the same number that you just did over here to the next decrease. So knit 1, I'm sorry, that's 2, 3, 4, 5, and repeat those 5. 1, this is the beginning of the asterisk. 2, 3, 4, 5. Remember covering that up. It had the yarn over the row before, or the rows before. Go ahead and pick up the next, skip 1 stitch, pick up the next, do your decrease, replace, and yarn over and decrease. Okay, we're gonna knit 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, knit 2 together, pick up the stitch, move it down, knit that stitch, don't yarn over yet, pull those 2 over, move it back to the previous, place your yarn over, and knit to the end of the row. If you have your repeated section, of course you're only knitting 5, and then you repeat again. Okay, and then we're going to make our return row, and you do the same thing that we've done on the other rows. Be sure and look at your pattern. I'm not going to go over it again, other than knit 1, purl 1 is at the beginning, and purl 1, knit 1 is at the end. So go ahead and do that. Pause your video. I'll meet you back for the next decrease row, which is row 12. All right, pause your video. I will see you at that point. Okay, we're at the beginning of row 12. We're going to knit 1, then begin our repeated asterisk section, which is knit 6. So knit 1, whoops, there's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so we're going to start moving them in again. Skip 1, pick up the second, move the first to second, replace, yarn over, knit 2 together. Okay, that's that SSK. You're still knitting 2 stitches together. And then you're going to knit 2 only. Whoa, 1 and 2. And now move your stitch over so you can knit 2 together. And then you move it back 1 stitch and yarn over. And then you're going to knit these next stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so we got to the middle here. Repeat the asterisk section, so knit 6. Okay, and now another decrease. SSK, pick up your stitch, move it over, replace, yarn over, knit these 2 stitches together, and knit 2 stitches, 1, 2, make your next decrease, pick up that stitch, move it over, work those 2 stitches together, and then move it back, yarn over, and then you're going to knit 6 stitches or knit to the end if you're at the end of all your repeats. Okay, so continue doing that. Pause your video, go ahead and work row 13 for that return row, and you're only going to be purling those middle 2 stitches. this time, and then purling these stitches that mark in the middle. And of course, your stitches, one stitch from the end are purls. So on the return row, let's just do the first again. Remember, the first 2 stitches are knit purl, and the last 2 stitches are purl knit on these return rows, okay? And that is making up this edge here. See how this edge has the garter, okay? All right, continue working that. Pause your video. I will meet you back for row 14. We'll see you soon. All right, we only have 2 more rows of decreases. So we're going to knit 1. This is the beginning of row 14. And I did say we have a 14 row repeat, but don't forget we had 3 rows beginning before your major row repeat started to happen. So you do have a few more rows after this. So don't think you're done. So we're going to knit 1, and then now the asterisk begins. We're going to knit 7. So there's actually 8 rows at the beginning, 8 knits before you have your first decrease. So from this point, knit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, so now this is where we're actually going to have 2 decreases back to back. So we're going to have our yarn over and then the decrease. So do that first one. So you got yarn over and decrease, and then we're going to do our decrease and then the yarn over. Same way you've done them before, they're just getting closer every time. There's that yarn over. And now we're going to knit 7. So knit 7, or you can knit to the middle of this. So knitting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and repeat, knit 7. Woo. There we go. Okay, and now these middle 2 stitches are getting done. Let me just make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, make sure and do your 2 decreases and yarn overs. Okay, yarn over, decrease, and then decrease. Move it over and yarn over, and then knit 7 and repeat, or knit all the way to the end if you're on your last repeat. Okay, and for this return row on row 15, you are only going to knit all stitches. You don't even purl at all. So and you'll do that actually on the next 2 return rows. So they're just going to be knitting all the stitches. So I'm going to show you what that does. That is this part right here. Okay, so you're setting it up for that next decrease to happen. If you remember in the very beginning, you have 3 knit stitches or 3 knit rows, and it actually gets it ready for when you want to make your first decrease. So it just it sets up extra knit stitches to move that over. So you need that space. So right here is where it happens. So go ahead and make your return knit row, pause your video, do that, and I will meet you back up for row 16. We'll see you soon. All right, we are ready for row 16. We have 2 rows left in our pattern repeat. The last one is just going to be a knit row. All right, so you're going to first begin by knitting 1. We've got our asterisk section here, so we're going to knit 9 now. So knit 9. So this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. Okay. And now we're just going to do 1 decrease to get that middle top part of the hole here. This one right here. Okay, so we did these before, and then now we're here. So you're just going to SSK, or yarn over SSK. So pick up a stitch and move that first one over to the second. Lay it back down. There we go. And yarn over and make your decrease. Knitting those 2 stitches together. Whoop. I got mine a little tight here. I probably was too tight on my knit row. Okay, and now we're just going to knit till the middle of these 2 for our asterisk, and then so basically we're knitting another actually 7 stitches. Okay, and then you'll do another decrease and then knit to the next repeat or knit to the end. So that's it. I'll go ahead and speed this up. Six, 7, 8, 9. So in this case, we had 7 at the end to get to here, and then the middle of this over here. So that's where that repeat is, slightly different from some of the other ones. So we did 7 after that decrease to the middle here, and then we did another 9 here, and now we want to decrease again. So pick 1 stitch up, move it over. And work those together, and then knit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then do your repeat again, or knit to the end if you're at the end of your repeat. And then that's all. You're just going to make your return row, row 17. You're just going to knit all the way back to the beginning. So go ahead and do that. Pause your video. I'll meet you at the end after you've finished row 17, knitting all stitches, and we'll talk about the repeats and what you need to do depending upon the length that you need, if you need to add any extra rows before you bind off to get a certain height. So we'll talk about that here at the end. Go ahead and finish yours. Pause your video. We'll see you there. All right, so I have worked rows 4 through 17 one time, and I've gotten 1 more of these repeats here. You can see I have 3 others before. So you're just going to continue working on the 9 by 7. You're going to have 4 repeats total. So you work those repeats 3 more times to get 9 inches, or 6 more times to get the 12 inches if you're working in the same gauge and yarn I'm doing. Otherwise, you're going to measure the height of your square, and you want to make sure and kind of pull down on there to get it nice and stretched out, and measure the height on there, and then you get your length. If you have your desired length, you can go ahead now and bind off, and you can just bind off straight across, or you can bind off in pattern, but I would just bind off just all knit stitches. That's fine for a stockinette look. And then weave in your tails now. Now, optionally, you can do 2 extra rows, and we do have them written on our website. So you're going to want to click on that blog to go there, but you can actually add a little bit extra length. I'm going to show you my knit sample here. So if you find to get to the extra length you need, if you need another 1/2 inch or something less than 1 inch, then you can add in these rows here, which give you a stockinette look, and then they repeat a couple of these garter stitch edges in the middle, or on the edges here, and then this garter stitch in the middle. So what you're doing is you're going to work a row knitting across, and then you're going to go back on that return row where you knit 1, purl 1, and then you knit to those middle stitches. So you're actually so knit 1, purl 1, then you knit 16, purl 1, and then you repeat purl 1, knit 16, purl 1, knit 1. Okay, and so that's how you work that. Be sure and click down below to get that information on the blog. All right, so I have woven in my tails from the beginning and the end. You can see how nice these 14 row repeats look, and you can see where it ends at the very top here, and then we have our bind off row. So you have a stockinette up at the top that you can sew this in with another panel, and down at the bottom, and of course you can sew in the sides here because your edge is a knit stitch here on your selvage edge. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed making this for the Garter inverted V eyelet stitch. Please be sure and tag us on GoodKnit Kisses at Instagram. We would love to see what you make. I hope you have a great day. Happy loom knitting, and we'll see you soon for more tutorials. Thanks for joining us today, where we help you stitch your love and love your stitches. See you again soon.